Now we have reached our chapter 14 finale. This is part 5.4, the ICU collapse, where we'll be discussing disseminated intravascular coagulation or DIC. This is your consumptive coagulopathy masterclass, so let's get started. We are starting directly with an ICU admission. Our patient is a 28-year-old female. The trigger event was a severe labor and delivery complication that resulted in an amniotic fluid embolism. Look at her clinical presentation. It is terrifying. She has heavy mucosal bleeding coming from her gums. There is continuous dark blood oozing from her IV catheter sites. Massive purpuric bruises are rapidly developing on her extremities, and she has acute black necrosis presenting on her toes. This clinical picture introduces us to the paradox of DIC. On one hand, we have ischemia. She is literally clotting to death as fibrin clots block the microvasculature to her tissues. On the other hand, we have hemorrhage. She is bleeding to death at the exact same time, with RBCs escaping from ruptured capillary walls. To understand how this happens, you must memorize this golden rule. DIC is never a primary disease. It does not just happen out of nowhere. It is always a secondary catastrophe triggered by a massive systemic event. To remember those high-yield triggers for your exams, use the STOP mnemonic. S is for sepsis. Gram-negative endotoxins are the absolute number one cause of DIC. T is for trauma. Massive tissue crushing violently releases tissue factor into the blood. O is for obstetrics. Amniotic fluid is packed with potent tissue factor. P is pancreatitis or APML, acute promyelocytic leukemia. APML releases overrods that directly trigger clotting. Once triggered, the patient enters the consumptive cascade. First, the systemic trigger hits the bloodstream. This causes uncontrolled activation of the coagulation cascade. Because of this, millions of microthrombi form in every capillary of the body. Then comes the crash. Your platelets are totally depleted. Your coagulation factors are totally depleted. The fatal result? When a small natural bleed occurs somewhere in the body, the bone marrow and liver factories are completely empty. Zero clotting material remains and the patient bleeds out. This directly informs the ultimate DIC lab profile. Platelets are massively decreased because they are all consumed in those systemic microthrombi. The PT measuring the extrinsic pathway is massively prolonged because factor 7 is entirely consumed. The APTG measuring the intrinsic pathway is also massively prolonged because factors 8, 9, 11 and 12 are entirely consumed. And finally, fibrinogen is massively decreased because it has been entirely converted into useless fibrin cement. So what is the definitive diagnosis? An elevated D-dimer. Here is the mechanism. DIC creates massive amounts of cross-linked fibrin clots. The body's fibrinolytic system panics. Plasmin goes into absolute overdrive, frantically chopping up millions of these clots. The biochemical debris from this chopping process is D-dimer, resulting in astronomically elevated D-dimer levels. When we look at the peripheral smear, we see the devastating microscopic blender. You will see schistiocytes, also known as helmet cells. The intravascular clots create a dense fibrin webbing. As a healthy RBC attempts to squeeze past, it is violently sliced in half by the fibrin strand. Let's put this into a diagnostic differential for your exams. DIC versus TTP and HUS. In DIC, platelets are consumed. In TTP and HUS, platelets are also consumed. But look at the coagulation tests. In DIC, the PT and APTT are prolonged. In TTP and HUS, they are strictly normal. Why? Because DIC pathogenesis consumes both factors and platelets, while TTP and HUS consume platelets only. Here's your unbreakable board rule. If a question shows a normal PT or APTT, it is not DIC. How do we treat this ICU patient? What is the protocol for extinguishing this fire? Step 1. Treat the root cause. If a house is on fire, you don't just throw new furniture inside. If it's an obstetric complication, you must deliver the baby and clear the uterus. If it's sepsis, you administer broad spectrum IV antibiotics. If it's APML, you administer ATRA or all trans retinoic acid. Step 2. Restock the factories with supportive care. We use fresh frozen plasma and cryoprecipitate to temporarily restock the empty coagulation factors, and we give platelet transfusions to stop active life-threatening bleeding. Before we finish, let's review our master framework for conquering Chapter 14. Part 1 was the factories: bone marrow, erythropoiesis, iron and B12, aplastic anemia, and polycythemia vera. Part 2 was the bloodstream: immune AIHA, sickle cell, and thalassemias. Part 3 was the dominoes: hemophilia, von Willebrand disease, and the coagulation cascade. And finally, part 4 was the collapse, the DIC, and our consumptive nightmares. You now possess a master level framework for hematopathology, and you are ready to crush the USMLE and NEETPG. If this series helped you, please hit like, subscribe, and share this with your batchmates. I am Dr. P, and I will see you in Chapter 15.